All right, Michael Dean, take it away.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So what I'm gonna do? Let me just say, my name is Michael Dean. Thank you. Been doing a podcast about Prince for a few years now. Been learning my way, but doing it out of love. Doing it because hey, it's Prince. I grew up on it. It's what I listen to. It's what is just inside my body and my brain. So I have to do it. And it's a pleasure to be here again, to be able to share it with y'all. Now that I got my nervous energy out the way, I can get started. So before we go, I want you guys to introduce yourselves to the people. And we're going to start here with Mr. Randy from the New Power Generation. For sure.
Oh, thank you. Testing 1, 2. Y'all can hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Anyway, I'm going to do a lot of voices today, so, just bear with me. Anyways, my name is Randy Ferguson. First and foremost, thank you, D'Angelo, for this opportunity for me to be sitting on the panel, especially as you said, the next generation, the new generation. I am representing the new generation here, but I'm also representing Prince fans everywhere. So I want to say that first and foremost, right? I like to say that I love music. I love anything about music. I would like to dedicate myself to music, but the bills. But I would say I'm a DJ. Also, I need to do more, but music producing, songwriting, so just everything with just music. I just want to touch. But also, in terms of the Prince fandom, I found Prince like slightly after Michael died, because I was a Michael fan first. And my mom had the Hits 2 CD around, and I used to listen to that, and I used to think that Get Off at the beginning when Prince was screaming, "Wah, yeah." I thought that was the funniest thing I ever heard in my life. Right, at 8 years old, but then when Michael died and my music ears has developed, it enables me to appreciate Prince and just go into the world of Prince, and I haven't looked back. I'm knee deep into it, as Funkadelic would say, right? So I've just been on this journey with Prince, and a few months ago, actually almost a year ago, me and a group of people, and if you saw the name early on the screen, her name is India. Me, India, and 2 other people, I'm gonna shout them out, Chris and Perla. We started a Twitter space called Purple Townhouse, and during that townhouse, we were talking about Prince fans. I want to say old, I don't want to say seasoned, because you know how that's going. But Prince fans, I know, right? But Prince fans across the generations, right? We felt like a little situation that was going on, and we wanted to bring everybody together and say, hey, no matter what, at the end of the day, we're here with the music of Prince, and we still need y'all to continue to teach us about Prince, because most of us, especially new generation, have not seen Prince or there has been ones that have been Prince fans since the day of his death, by his death, that became Prince fans. So you are the artifacts, are the historians, are the museums. Y'all are all that.
Did you just call us artifacts?
Well, not that.
That's one step from fossils.
Lord. Very, very not. How can I go back on this? I didn't mean to say artifacts like that, but important figures in the Prince community. I know you are. I'm trying to get my nervous energy out. But we have been continuing to do the Purple Townhouse on Twitter, and now we move into Station Head, where now we're trying to be like more of a radio show where we get to play Prince music, but also at the same time get to talk about the topics or albums that we're talking about. And it's a very cool product that we're trying to put out there. So again, I'm excited to be here, excited to talk about the time. I'm going to hand it over to Sheila, who's trying to be messing with me.
I said, thanks for making us feel old. Appreciate that.
I'm not trying to.
Hi guys, I'm Sheila Wade. This is my first Prince Symposium. I'm so excited. So I have to tell a couple of stories. First of all, since I'm talking about this being my first, how I met D'Angela and her wonderful hubby. I saw him earlier. Did he leave? Okay, such a supportive hubby. So I've been a Prince fan since I was in elementary school, literally. And that's why I was so shocked that I'd never heard of the symposium. Like, my people have been here all this time and I'm shocked. But I guess just lost in radio land doing my, career. But I met D'Angela through her hubby. I was at the, going to catch the PATH train in Jersey City, and I was rocking my Starfishing Coffee tee. And he was like, "Hey, I love your shirt." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." And then he, when we got on the train, he came right behind me and stood next to me, and I'm like, "What is this creepy guy doing?" And then he started telling me about his wife. I was like, "Oh, he's awesome!" And so he was, saying everything about the Symposium. I'm like, "What?" And so he probably didn't think I would, but I, when I got home, I researched her. I got her email from her NYU profile. I emailed her. I know it was like I was the stalker now. And I emailed her, and then we had all three of us had brunch, and then she invited me. We had pancakes, yes. I think I had a waffle. Yes. Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate you inviting me. I was really thrilled for you inviting us. So this is how I arrived here, guys. And I'm just so happy to just be just amongst you guys and surrounded by the Prince love, the purple love. I'm just so, you don't even know how excited I am. Some of these pins I've had since high school, by the way. These Prince pins. There's actually, I wore my time pin because. But one more story. First time I saw Prince, that I even knew he existed, I probably was, I don't know, before I was 10 years old. And I remember.
Was this in Houston?
This was in H-Town, yes.
We're going to come back to that. Go ahead.
Okay. But I remember I was watching TV with my older sister and my mother. And then we were watching and we're like, "Oh my God, who is that lovely lady with this beautiful hair?" Because his back was turned to, and he had his bikini on and all that stuff. So I just thought it was a woman. "Oh, look at that beautiful hair." And then he turned around and my mom was like, "Mama," we were like, "What?" and my sister was like, "You guys don't know Prince?" As my older sister was always a Prince fan. And we were like, "Who?" And then from that moment on, he just stuck in my head. And I remember being on the bus, going to school and listening to Controversy as young as I was. But then that's my memory of becoming a Prince fan since the Controversy album, and just ever since. So that's how I came to be a Prince fan.
You remind me, we're going to come back to H-Town on
Okay.
that. We're going to go to the law, sir. And when you came in at the right time, it was just starting. I know you just did an ill show last night and turned it out, sir. So congratulations.
And you look fabulous. You don't look worn out.
My body's conditioned for the mission, as we say.
Amen.
When you love what you do, the passion of it, and for most fans that know and people that know, I'm a hardcore Brooklyn Scorpio. So I wear it on my shirt. I wear it on my sleeve. People who I love, the people who influence me, everybody that's seen me on Instagram and stuff. Like I'm making sure, and I've been doing that since I was a kid. Like, you let it be known, we're from that era where if you are a true Metallica fan, Stevie Wonder, whatever it is, you wore it on your. I'm very much still. I'm a proud '80s baby, '90s teenager. So, growing up in a musically diverse family, and today is a very special day simply because not only I'm home, Brooklyn, St. Mark's Avenue, Albany Projects, Crown Heights, and this is my stomping grounds. You used to run up all through here, and what's special is for those who are from Brooklyn like me, if you remember the Duffield Theater. That's where my mother took me and my brothers to go see Purple Rain. So that's why it's even more. There was only 2 theaters in this area, Duffield and Lowe's Metropolitan, which was right next to the church that me and my mother was a part of, which is Brooklyn Tabernacle. If y'all know Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir, we were a part of that. So imagine having a Holy Ghost feel, because we from the church. I grew up in gospel, singing in church. And the thing is, having a holy, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost mom, who also was at the Dirty Mind show. And I was still younger. So my love for Prince literally began through the funnel of my mom. As Purple Rain was selling, I'm like, this guy here, because like you said earlier, the Jacksons are my first heroes without question. Jermaine's the reason why I even picked up a bass. So the thing is, having that, and then all of a sudden I see the Little Red Corvette video. I'm like, okay, this guy's pretty cool. And I'm like, oh. And then next thing you know, I'm going through my mom's collection, and I see this Prince album cover, and I'm like, is that the same? That is the same guy. And he's butt naked on a damn unicorn. And I'm like, okay, Mom, what's going on here? And then, I'm from the generation where even when cassettes were coming in, and then even as records were still being played, you put the needle anywhere, and that was it. So even though I'm describing, oh, he may not want to be a lover too. I'm like, I'm describing all this stuff. Then I put on Bambi, and that changed me forever. I'm like, because as a guitarist, you know, I'm the grandson of Sam Bluesman Taylor. You know, his work with Albert Collins and B.B. King. So I grew up in it for real, like in terms of musicianship and things like that. So once Prince and Stevie kind of entered my world, that's when the foray of me becoming a full course of everything. The singing, the rapping, the musicianship, and of course, along with New Edition, the choreography. And here's a funny thing for y'all. At a time, as everybody knows, when that little moment happened, when Purple Rain was happening, all these different things that happened in '84, and of course, even though Prince, MJ, Stevie, and Hendrix are my heroes, and James Brown, of course, and Palmer Funkadelic, and of course, definitely these guys. So the thing is, now I'm figuring this out. So I'm into New Edition because they look like me. They dress just like me. They're from the projects like me. So that's my first concert. And how funny is it? A young Bobby Brown steps to the microphone and says, "Who out here like Prince?" Now, mind you, this is at a time when Prince was still very much taboo. Even though people loved him in the hood, it was like, yeah, he's look, I love the, what's that one he said, baby, baby. I like that song, but you know, the rest of the other stuff you can keep. So imagine seeing your favorite R&B group do a killer version of I Would Die For You. And that solidified in that moment for me that I don't have to limit myself to anything. So that's when I knew that Prince really became, no matter where my career went, this is before I created Planet 12 and my whole thing, but Prince was always the epicenter because he gave me the permission to say, you don't have to stay there, rock. You can do reggae too. You can do pop music. You can do this. You can do that. It gave me that interest. So D'Angela and Michael Dean always showing support. Thank you for the love. I'm happy to be here, and let's get it rocking.
All right. So the time, yeah, absolutely.
You know DJ
story.
Scratch?
I grew up with DJ Scratch,
DJ
Albany
Scratch. He said he was
Projects.
from Albany
so y'all went
Projects.
Projects.
My coworker Scratch
I
grew
used
up
to
in
carry
the same
equipment
project.
outside for EPMD, and that's funny because Eric Sermon lives near me now in Central Islip.
Oh, wow.
This is
Wow.
the first guy to sample my grandfather, actually.
Oh, wow.
So,
Wow. Okay, wow. Houston, and we're going to get into the time. But the first time I was even brought aware of the time was in Houston. When I used to go as a kid, I had family there, and we'd go during the summer. And I always remember it was 5th Ward. This was when Get It Up was out.
Okay.
And I just remember my aunt picking me up from the airport, and she knew I liked music. She said, "You got to hear this." And I didn't know who it was, but she was playing Get It Up, and Zap was popping at the time, too. I think I heard it through the grapevine or something. And that's why I always remember, and like my cousin who got me into Prince, so that's why you brought up Houston, she lived out there, and she was all into Prince. And I remember she took me to a house party. Yeah, my little ass shouldn't have been there, but she took me to a house party, and they was like sneak playing Dirty Mind and Controversy. It was like, oh, did you hear this? And it was just let it play over and over. I didn't know who Prince was, but I remember hearing it. So I always felt like Houston was always up on some Prince back in the day, you know?
Like I have friends who, my first Prince concert was Purple Rain, but I have friends who went to all of the ones before that, you know, and one who went to see him at Hofheinz Pavilion. And for you guys who don't know, that's where the University of Houston plays. So he was playing at the small, you know, concert of the college. I have friends who went to that. Yeah, Prince fans run deep. We used to have Prince parties every June 7th. Even when he was alive, you know, we would be going hard with Prince parties even when he was alive every year. So got some major Prince fans in Houston.
Right on. With that said, Ice Cream Castles, I'm curious you, sir, because I love to hear like people that are just getting into Prince and what their interpretation of the time is. So in terms of this album, one, I was just curious, how well did you know of the time, and then what did you think when you first heard the Ice Cream Castles album?
That's a good question. As I'm trying to remember back into my Prince discovery era, which was, again, like around 2010, 2011, I remember telling myself, I got to see Purple Rain. It was like early on into my Prince discovery because I knew Purple Rain was that movie, that album that really catapulted him into stardom. So as I'm watching the movie, I see, Morris Day in the Time, doing that little joke before they go on stage and they do Jungle Love, I'm like, whoa, now that's funky. And then they do The Bird, whoa, that's funky. I don't know if y'all know, there's only 2 time songs on the movie, and those are the 2 funkiest songs, right? So I remember telling myself, okay, I got to listen to Ice Cream Castle. I think that's the first album I listened to when I was discovering The Time. I didn't listen to What Time Is It or The Time's first album. That was like later on into my Prince career. So yeah, I listened to Ice Cream Castles and immediately I fell in love with it. Not just because of those 2 songs in the movie, but it's like, what, a 30, 35-minute album? So it was a quick listen. But at that time, I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the loose concept of the album. I fell in love with every single song that was on it. So I just really gravitated towards that album. I was like, yeah, I gotta stay with The Time. And learning that The Time was an extension of Prince's arm, his music legacy, that as I learned, he did all the music, he did all the lyrics, he created the Morris Day character, and just learning that, it made me love The Time as the idea, then also the band, because then I'm discovering the band and the players are on it. Now me, as I just said, I'm a Michael fan. So as a Michael fan, traditionally you go into, Janet, and you listen to Janet. And you hear now, and growing up, Rhythm Nation, my mom played Rhythm Nation all the time. So those songs are stuck in my mind. Who's producing? Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. I just know them as Janet Jackson's producer, right? So as I go and discovering The Time, and I see in the original band, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis is on that band. I was like, well, hold on now. Isn't that the producers that produce Janet's albums? Oh, this is really dope. Oh, that's cool.
The dots,
yeah, you start, exactly. My brain just starts exploding, and then I'm learning about Jesse Johnson, and I'm learning about Jelly Bean Johnson right there, yes. And just learning about how, and Monty Moore, just discovering how talented these musicians are. And then going through and then learning the story of The Time, Jimmy Jam, Taylor Lewis leaves, and then you bring in St. Paul and Ricky, that's the bass player's name. Am I mistaken? Yeah, the bass player. Yeah, so learning them coming in, but there's no really a lot of history with that. So as I'm learning, I'm going through it, and I'm learning, okay, The Time is really just all Prince. Morris, again, he's playing the character. And from taking all that information, as an inspiring musician, as an inspiring creator, I felt that I was learning to put out anything that I want to do, but then also if I see people that has the same energy as me or has the same aspirations as me, and it's like, I can make your ideas even more greater, then we're gonna collab, So just listen to Ice Cream Castles and listen to all the songs on there inspired me to just go more deeper into not only Prince but also into Morris Day and also into the other musicians out there. So yeah, that's how I was influenced.
Nice. Shelly, you're familiar with The Time before this album came out, right? So what did you think of Ice Cream Castles? And I wanted to ask too in terms of like the song Ice Cream Castles, because I believe that was the first single. Yeah. And it felt like that song was, when it first came out, almost felt like a departure of what you thought The Time was supposed to sound like coming off of 77, 93, 11, The Walk. They just came with jams right out,
Just that fun.
But this was more like that summer groove. This to me, when I listen to it now, this reminds me of like some West Coast, you just kicking back, or whatever you're doing. But
what? I've never heard of such a thing.
I just did an intake of air. But it was a real, it was just a vibe, it was it was a different sound for them at the time. So I'm just curious, what did you think about
You know
it?
what? You know, as I was listening to you talk about it, it kind of reminds me of just the vibe, the feeling you had with "Take Me With You." I kind of think maybe that was, you know, just the whole "I'm on a ride," you know, this smoothing out, you know, but it still was funky too. But it kind of reminds me of that vibe. So I feel like maybe, you know, Prince designed it as a way to, you know, go along with, you know, Purple Rain, you know. But I mean, just the whole album was freaking amazing. I think it's gorgeous. I think it's brilliant. You know, it's short and sweet and makes you want more. It's like, wait, what? It's over already?
Yeah.
And I just think the album in its entirety is just gorgeous. You know, and I wonder do you guys have any like ideas as to why, maybe you know, as to why the album is called Ice Cream Castle, but the song is Ice Cream Castles.
Well, I do know, and y'all can correct me in the audience, this is a line from Joni Mitchell.
Joni Mitchell, yeah.
Mitchell song, yeah.
Yeah, the album is singular, but the
That's a
song
good
is
question.
plural.
That I don't know.
I would love for, you know, D'Angelo, jump on that.
Do your
It's not
Googles,
in the
girl.
book. It's not in the book.
There you go.
I would really love to know that.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Good question. Law. First of all, let me ask. So, Law, if y'all didn't go to the show last night, like he was doing like them songs that you don't normally get to hear. Yeah. And the band was like really playing them like, you know, they know the songs and really feel them. So with that said, I got to throw a song at you. My Draws.
Yeah. Better find a brand new bag.
There you go.
Matter of fact, I'll quote Jesse. The revolution, whose draws?
Yeah. Let's start it. Let's get it
that's
going.
a perfect. Thank you for the alley hoop on that. Like that's the thing is, this is the album. Well, for me, that solidified. Because you gotta remember, this is me, and as I told y'all, my musical worlds were colliding in 1984. Here I am, 8, 9 years old. And now I'm ready, you know, I'm getting into Prince, I'm discovering, I'm doing the back catalog, and then my legendary uncle, Tony T. Funk Austin, who played with James Brown and Kool in the Gang. That's my whole, everything that y'all know about me when it comes to funk is because of that man, and my grandfather, of course, with BT Express. But the thing was, Tony was the new age of the cut and funk in that 80s. So everybody from Cameo or Higher Players, he had every album you can think of, even with Weather Report and Mahavishnu Orchestra, Jazz Fusion. So that's why my mind started to expand at 9 years old. So of course, just like with Prince, I discovered the What Time Is It album. I'm like, hold up, these are the same guys. Oh shoot! So I'm like you. I'm putting it all together. I'm like, okay, this is. So now let's get on the personal level. The direct influence, and of course, without question, we can truthfully say that this is the time's biggest and most mainstream album that introduced them more of their own set. The two albums definitely set up the foundation, but this was the album that got America's attention about who these guys were. And then the whole the Minneapolis competition, which was really embedded in the fabric of the movie, which was really, of course, when I started learning more about the history as I got older, I'm like, oh, so that's why. And I'm like, it makes a lot of sense. But on a more personal level, me and my little brother, Pepe, a.k.a. Wild Man, you gotta remember, we grew up raw on the streets. And the thing is, coming from church, and I'm Baptist Pentecostal, not the gospel, the gospel. Y'all know what that means. And the thing is, me and my brother hated wearing suits. So our grandmother, God bless you, Nana, I love you. Because we didn't, it's like crappy suit. We going in, and it's bad enough. I'm singing here. So I'm on the choir, so I understood it. I'm singing. Okay, Lord's going to do a solo, and then it's like, man, this thing. We couldn't wait to get into our jeans and sneakers, and then we saw Purple Rain. And as much as we were getting into Prince at that moment, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome The Time. And when, Mars stepped, I'm like, okay, this is different. Even that intro, like, I'm like, and me and my brother sat there and was like, now, if you're gonna wear a suit, that's the so without question, The Time is the reason, and along with my Uncle Kevin, because Uncle Kevin was always sharp, but he was only sharp when it came to him clubbing. So now all of a sudden it's like, okay, what's some shoes? Yo, he said, you gotta get you some Stacey Adams. I said, hold up, that's what Morris said in the song. And then I discovered Detroit, Chicago, LA, all the players.
It was already on it.
Or that, you know, and that's like kind of like how Steve Harvey dressed, like that whole, that's the whole thing he aspires to, that whole, but seeing Morris Day and the Time do it, but here's the thing, they got the suits, they cool, but then there's the steps and the mean slide game, and you know, and Michael Biv will tell you, from New Edition will tell you this too, when you say open up the jar, throw the lid, chili sauce, and we saw that was dropped, you know, the girls used to scream at that. So me and my brother, when I wasn't singing New Edition's Lost in Love and other talent shows, I won my first talent shows, me and my brother started doing Jungle Love. And because he's my little brother, I'm the second oldest of 5. So the thing is that, you know, he's my little brother. So everywhere I went, you know, he's like, yeah. So I'm trying to get my stuff together, and then all of a sudden, he comes in with the mirror. So I'm like, oh, shoot, okay, so you're going to be Jerome and I'll be Mars. And you couldn't tell us nothing. This is the first Law shows, besides the ones I did with my mother and my grandfather playing and singing blues and all that stuff. But that was the defining moment where I knew, and the importance of this. And then for Christmas, my mom bought me the cassette of Ice Cream Castle. So now we were able to get into my draw, the rock and roll part of it. So I'm looking at this, and then all of a sudden, my uncle started seeing me getting into it, and they began to tell me those famous stories. It's like, I'm glad you liked them, because your boyfriend, but you know, the time was kicking there. I'm like, what? Nah, I don't believe that. I can't believe that. And of course, thank God for my Uncle Tony's VHS tapes where he had the show, the 1999 tour. And that, when they did the walk, that vamp out, that killed everything. I'm like, okay. So as I'm developing Planet 12, I'm like, this is a gumbo. We're going to put all this in here. So you're going to get this. You're going to get, you know, and then every now and then we would do the suit things. We were still, you know, we still street. So at the end of the day, it's like, okay, we have this combination, but at least Mars Day and the Time gave us the notion now. So even for my personal growth, coming into manhood at 13, I was already clubbing at 13 at that point. So so now I knew, okay, Law, you got the street thing down, you got the hood, but now put on that 3-piece, be Mars. You ain't got to be too, you know, and Mars is he's like, well, how you look, Mars? Almost as good as me. And I took that on. So this is why this album and the whole Target focus on it, because after that, anytime Morris solo records, and then of course, think about this for a second. Dream come true. Just like I told my mother that I was going to meet George Clinton and work and be in Parliament Funkadelic, which I've been part of 25 years, it manifested 7 years later. And then of course, when we did the Morris and Jerome thing, I told my mom, I'm gonna meet them one day. They're gonna do, and how funny is it? We end up becoming, you know, 20-year friendship with my legendary Minneapolis uncles. We've opened up for Morris in the Time, and then I end up working with Jelly Bean and Monty Moore and Tony M on their album. So you can imagine that feeling, and it all goes, every time I'm around them, I get a moment, because it always goes back to me and my brother be like, and my brother lives in Binghamton, so he'd be like, man, Lord, that's, remember when I'm like, yeah, man, how crazy is it now we get to experience that, so.
Wow. Speaking of the Time live, I didn't think of it at the time, but the audacity or the balls for for the Time to put on a live version of a song you never heard before on the album. If you really think about that, like what band, that's a rare thing that a band on their third record would, normally they'd play a song you know and maybe put that on the album. That could be, but they put a song that had never been out before. It was a dance. Right, which we'll get into, but they put on a live version of the song to close out the album and killed it and performed it as if it was already a hit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, who can do that? Yeah.
That's what it boils down to, the confidence. As I was listening, you know, on my way over here, I was listening to the whole album, and I was like, what? How improbable is it that that song would be a hit? You know, when I say that, I mean The Bird, you know, and, you know, because you're used to people doing, you know, the funk bands, you know, but you're like Bird and then what? And all that. What?
Well, you know what?
You know, but it's like you said, because of the confidence and because they were so amazing and such what's the word I want to use? I mean, just their performances were just, I mean, it couldn't help but be a hit.
Yeah. It's almost like in the lineage of like Rufus Thomas and Funky Chicken. There was always like the songs that was the dance. Right. There would always be that jam. They would have to dance with it, and the band, the Time, their whole like discography is kind of like that, like The Walk. You know what I'm saying? And then go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to add on, right, since we're talking about church, right? The whole song's a call and response song. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about, I'm a history buff, right? And I notice things socially, right? I know at the 80s, right, at the time America's mostly, it still is, but mostly Christian, right, with different aspects of Christianity in it, right? But most people are used to that call and response. When you go to church, pastor's like, do y'all love Jesus today? right?
Yeah.
So as the Time is doing it, and he's like, America, have y'all heard? They got a brand new dance, and it's called The Bird. And it's like, if y'all funky with me, do like I do, right? And it's very easy. What? Hallelujah.
Well,
and just doing this.
I was going to say, because, I mean, I tell people all the time, and everybody knows this, but funk came out the church.
Yes, it did.
Sly and the Family Stone, I Want to Take You Higher. If that's not gospel, I give up.
Amen.
So that connection link, and of course, because Sly was such an influence, I always have what's called the 3 funk analogy. James Brown created the funk. Sly Stone diversified the funk, but Parliament Funkadelic made funk a genre and religious.
Ooh,
that's when it became what it
that.
became. Everybody else from Earth, Wind & Fire, they all grew up in between that because of the influence of those guys. But to say that, it's more so if you listen to when they do The Bird, when he goes, he's like, Siamese Twin Trojan, give me something to fly with. That walking bass line, that's church. Boom, 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 boom. That's church.
Yes.
That's nothing but church. So when you see Larry Graham or any of us bass players, when we get into that mode, that all comes from the gospel. That's church.
Yes.
No matter where you go, you can take it anywhere. I mean, you look at D'Angelo and everybody else that grew up the same way we grew up. And I had that conversation when I met D'Angelo when he was working on Voodoo. And we just was like, because certain things he would do that only if you from the gospel world, you knew. But we always had one foot in the street. That's why me and D'Angelo were very much. It's almost like that combination of Jodeci too. Same thing with Jodeci, SWV. It's all connected. So imagine when hip hop comes into the picture. Now we have all these people who, you hear Fantasia, it's pretty obvious to see. You see all of it. So that whole, the Time and the musicians, even if they didn't have the extreme church backgrounds, it goes back to when they go to those vamp outs. That's nothing but, that's the Holy Ghost in its purest form outside of the religious part of it. So,
and to your point, when I even go back further, think about the Isley Brothers. You make me want to shout. I mean, that all, it's like you're like in there testifying.
That's all gospel. Yeah.
And a lot of that record, that album has that, like you said, that church vibe to it, the revival spirit to it. But there's another side of this album that I think is brought to the forefront on this album. So it's like a deep dive into the Morris Day character and or what that is. Celie, can you do me one favor? Yes. I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you come up here for a second?
Ladies and gentlemen.
So there's one side to this album, and it was sort of touched on, and it really plays into, and I'm not saying that you are these things, but it's not a shoe cam, but I don't know if y'all are out there internet land, but look at the shoes.
See, there it is.
I'm looking right now.
Stacey Adams are
black and white.
There it is.
Suited and booted.
Don't put a hold on them now.
Now, if we was back in the 80s, this would have probably been whipped up, right?
I love it.
But what I like about the record, though, is there you go. Yeah, spotlight on the chest. There.
See, there it is.
I wish I had a handkerchief. I'd just be like,
right. What do you say? Watch it now.
I'll just say, I'll go to my seat saying the first pair of Stacey Adams I ever saw, my father and my uncle.
Yes.
So
yes.
When I saw the Time, I saw my father and my uncle.
OGs.
Yes, sir. And it also brought that, I think, a spirit that came from Ron O'Neal and the Mac and these types of movies.
Oh, absolutely.
Of, I like to say a guy that was spitting or, talking to young ladies. Now, we can be influenced by Morris to wear that, But the other side is a fool like me can be influenced by some of the stuff Morris is saying, thinking
That
you
part.
can actually go say that in real life. And that ain't it. That ain't it. I learned the hard way. Now you gotta have some money to be able to just stop
Gotta have
talking
some money.
crazy
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Can I say to your point, when I think about my drawers, I mean, I love that song, but then in real life, I'm like, wait, that sounds a little possessive. It's like, you don't own me, but it's a fun song though. So a lot of that stuff,
Yeah, and so get into songs like Chili Sauce. And if the kid can't make you come. Now, I will say, when this album first came out, I used to kind of skip those a little bit. But if you really take the time to listen to the music in those songs, phenomenal. Like, are you serious kind of music? I almost dare say the music on these songs are better than the other. The other ones are so accessible and easy to get into. But if the kid can't make you come, I mean, seriously, listen to it. I know you have listened to the bass playing and all that. It's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to spend some time on those tracks, like Chili Sauce. And one of the questions I was talking to Troy before we came in, and somebody, if you know, was Chili Sauce created before shooting of the movie? So maybe like in a response to what was going on in that scene with Apollonia? Or was it before the movie, and the movie is sort of riffing off of this song that just hadn't been released yet? I don't know.
I think I read that that they worked on it before the movie came. I don't know if they worked on it before the movie was filmed, but definitely before the movie came out. I think either early or late '83, and the movie came out in the summer of '84.
Yeah.
Stop me when I get to 17.
Oh God.
They started filming in the almost end of fall, beginning of winter in Minneapolis, right? But then they moved everything else into LA. So that's what I remember. So I'm assuming it could have been recorded just right before they
It was
started.
April '83.
Oh, so even before filming.
Yeah.
Way
But
before
it was
filming.
kind of like they probably already had the concept,
Yes.
Well, he was
Man,
calling
because-
himself the kid before the kid was actually a character.
Ooh.
You know,
Think about it.
That's so funny because when I saw the title, "If the Kid Can't Make You Come," before I had seen the movie, I assumed this was about the
Me too.
Prince's character,
Same thing.
right? Yeah, but
Yeah. But, I know you were saying how beautiful the music is on those songs, but just people have to give Morris credit for how brilliant a comic he is.
absolutely.
I mean,
yes.
just
Absolutely.
Yes,
brilliant. And the way he, can turn a term, absolutely brilliant.
I almost wonder, are there versions of "If the Kid Can't Make You Come" and Chili Sauce that are Prince doing those songs? That would be
I'm
very
pretty
interesting
sure
to
it's in
hear.
the vault somewhere. If we know
Does it
Prince
sound
we
just
know
like
him.
his humor kind of thing too?
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
I think it's in the vaults secretly somewhere. At this point, with all the stuff coming out, there's
Yeah.
no doubt in my mind that there's always a version of another version of another version, and it started there. Like,
I think I read
And the
that.
bird.
It is, yeah.
I think I read that. Was it that one or was it the Propositions? Was that Kid Can't Make You Come? Proposition 17?
I think
That
that was.
Kid,
Yeah.
Kid
That
Can't
was,
Make You Come. Oh, that was Chili Sauce.
I think it's
okay.
Chili Sauce. Yeah.
Because I know one of them I read, because Jesse Johnson had done a post on Facebook where he was saying that he actually wrote the song, and he and Morris, I think, and then they did it in Minneapolis, and then they flew to L.A. to record in the studio with Prince, and he liked it, but he changed up some things.
And we got to give Jesse his props.
Yes,
Yes.
amazing.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Isn't Jungle Love based off of one of Jesse's
His demos.
demos?
Yeah, one of demos,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like this is the album where some of their contributions got to really be a part of these songs.
And you were saying earlier how, it's all Prince, and, I agree with you, but to a certain point, I like how he really collaborated with Morris and Jesse on, the music.
I mean, they were playing off each other. I mean, if you think about most of the things that him and Morris were doing, and of course, the talks I had with Morris over the years when we were touring together and stuff like that. Of course, you can imagine me in a room with them. I'm getting the answers to all of my questions that I had over the last 10 years of my music development, so now I get to be in here. And then the first night we actually opened up for them, Terry was actually there with Freeze. And they did Gigolos Get Lonely too, and both of them played a 12-minute bass solo. It was epic. It was at Tramps. You had to be there. For those who know about Tramps in New York City, that was the hotbed of that. But the thing is, if the kid can't make you come, even the influence in that, and then with chili sauce, because once again, going back to me and my brother, we started getting, like you, I'm like, you know what, you think we should try to holler at a girl like that? Because you gotta think about it, you know, coming from where we come from, you know, and I always had a different approach, you know, in Brooklyn, it's mostly a street thing. Yo, ma, what up, baby, what up? You know, everybody knows, you know. And we just wasn't, I'm like, and my uncle and them was like, that ain't gonna get it. And I never did. I'm just like that's the way that I'm like, no. But the more we started listening to Morris's approach, you know, he's the definition of what I always say in my statements. He's like, oh, it's confident. I say, yeah, but confidence is only arrogance to insecure people. So Morris and Jerome, just even, you know, like, yes, like just that, the whole, even though he's trying to show off, and the thing he's trying to show off to the girl, but the thing is, even in that, the vulnerability in that part. That's why even as he's getting deep into it, and then that thing ends, and Jerome's like, Morris, yeah, 17, oh, what's it gonna be? And he said, what's it gonna be? And I'm just like, you know what? That taught me right there. And I'm you know, again, I'm 11 and 12 at the time, so I'm like, this is going to give me the extra. I was already kind of, you know, like bold, but that just kind of gave me extra confidence. And I was talking to this girl named Bridget, and I told my little brother, I said, stop me when I get to 17. I tell you, kid,
what is 17?
Listen, again, I told y'all earlier, once we adapted the whole spectrum of what we were going to be about with this Planet 12 stuff, again, you couldn't tell us nothing. We approach every scenario as if we were Prince or Morris or the sensitivity of Michael, but yes, but the project stuff of New Edition. So that whole combination pretty much provided that. But that song is still, you know, that I had to think about that. I'm like, we actually did that, and the girl Bridget, she didn't really know. She's like, she wasn't into Prince like that. She's like, okay, but we ended up going out. So. Oh, so it did work out. So.
Can I ask you guys, you fellas, when you were saying, you know, the confidence, I do agree that there's a sense of confidence in it, you know, mostly. But then how much also, and you were saying vulnerable, how much also is a little desperation if you have to do 17 propositions?
Well, I mean, you know, of course, only those guys can. I mean, because we don't. I mean, we weren't in the studio with them, so we can easily be like, we don't know, or we can attest to it. But speaking again. But as I dug deep, like you said earlier, as I dug deep into it, because I got the music part down, I got my, you know, I'm playing all the instruments, I'm learning, but now I'm getting into the ambiance of it all, and I'm just like, this is deep. And then I go to, you know, and then the funny thing was like, don't ever try to breastfeed no baby. Why not? Never mind. And I'm just like, that, and that's Mars, and I'm just like, he's funny, but still the sensitive, sexy factor, but in his way. And then, of course, at the end of the record, you know, she says the Pledge of Allegiance. And as it fades out, what does he say?
Ain't nobody bad like me.
And then we heard, and then like, hold up, he said that in Purple Rain. Yes. So that's why when I got the tape earlier, I'm like, again, putting two and two together. I'm like, this is sick. So now you just basically just heard the remainder of my teenage years going into my adult years when we started clubbing even harder. And then that, we took on all these personas and took it to the stage in our own stage show, performed my aunt, and then my aunt recognized it. And she was like, Law, this is a stupid question, but you know Jungle Love, right? My brother ran out at Lola's on West 22nd for those who grew up in New York City. Those clubs in the 90s, when we started doing stuff like that and combining it with Belle Biv DeVoe and all that stuff, we had the crowd on lock, and it just always made me feel like, thank God we studied those records. Because you gotta remember, look how the industry had changed once it got to the 90s. And then here's the interesting part, because the time would end up having their, if I'm not mistaken, their only #1 hit with Jerk Out. So think about that time between that and 1990, and here we are. I'm 16, 17 now, fresh out of high school. We clubbing, we doing shows, and we're keeping that whole pinching alive as they bring out the new music. So thank God for those records, again.
Yeah, that was. Does anybody remember back then being in high school that there was always somebody at the talent show or the assembly and they was gonna do the time? Yeah. It was like that was a thing. That was a staple. Definitely remember. That was something I was gonna say. I totally forgot. Oh, I was just some of the classic Morris Day sayings that came out of this album. Like you said a couple of them, but there was a lot. They was doing a lot on that. We actually got some questions from online and some comments, so I wanted to start with some of those and get you guys' opinion. And this first one here, it doesn't say who it's from, but it says, my pops said that the time kicked Prince's ass in the film. Do you agree?
In the beginning, yes. But then you put on Purple Rain.
Yeah.
It's just like you can't go with Purple Rain. I get you.
That
We
part.
getting fun.
Yep.
We doing the bird. We go ah. But then when you hit Purple Rain, it's like I think I just met Jesus. I think I just got to heaven. So
I agree. I agree that the
the
time did, but in the end, people like to go with the underdog that overcomes, and so he was the he
It's
was
a little
that
empty
character.
tonight. But
Money
of
isn't
course, money
everything.
isn't everything. That's all I'm gonna say about that because Mars knew he had him, and of course, it's a movie setup. But you got to. But still, for us young impressionable minds, before we knew the history, that's what it was. And then I told you, my uncles used to tell me that all the time. So it was like until I saw it for myself with the earlier footage. But the thing is, right in that section, even though of course Prince is Prince, that's my hero, that's my idol. But the thing was. Now Prince is coming off the thing, his father kills himself, shoots himself, whatever. And the thing is, now here comes, like you said earlier, the bird being a song of, it's a live song of a record that nobody heard.
Right.
And just when they went into that walk after that, and we said, y'all got 10 seconds to go to the dance floor. Again, me and my brother just looking at these, like,
Y'all know what to do.
so they're trying to get every step in notion. So
Yeah.
I personally believe from that aspect, definitely the time was still kicking Prince's ass.
Now to keep it a buck, at the time I wasn't really feeling the Purple Rain performance in the movie. Not that it was bad, but just watching it from a movie standpoint, I thought the time killed him. Like,
I think it did, but like as a Prince fan,
For sure.
I was like so rooting for Prince, and so
oh no,
I was
rooted
all
for
about.
Prince. Yeah,
I was
But
all about him being victorious at the end.
him coming back and doing "Baby I'm a Star." And it's over.
Yeah,
But
pretty much.
Let me ask this question, and I hesitate to ask because I don't want to come. It's not a negative question, but do you ever feel like sometimes it seemed like Prince was like low key? I don't know if sabotage is the word, but low key kind of like y'all got so many hits. Let me kind of do a little something so it isn't just blowing me out or something. What I mean by that is to say, like, what's the album that was before this? What Time Is It album? There's little weird edits on the songs that aren't like perfect and they kind of blend in the offbeat a little bit. It does that on this album, like on If the Kid Can't Make You Come On. If you listen to it at certain points, you hear the kind of funny
the fade out. Yeah, they cut it.
split the tape and it just comes in a little offbeat. I always wondered, was he doing that on purpose?
That's a good
Because
question.
he don't have his records be immaculate.
The time is like, let me
It's
just
like,
F it up real quick.
let it fade a little bit and come back in. And then just like on the positioning of like some of their performances, because I'm like, if the time, like what do they fade out on Jungle Love in the movie?
Yes.
And I'm like, hey, he's jamming. But I could see why he might be like, yeah. So I don't know. I might just be the only one feeling like that. But sometimes I felt like
Gemini to the max.
them boys was dangerous.
That was a question I had in my head leading up to today because I knew there was like the two fake fade outs and The Kid Can't Make You Come. And I'm like, did he do that because of the record and how long it is? But I'm over here like, wait, but it's a 6-song album. Each side has 22, 23 minutes. Nah, they ain't no. He could fit all the 8 minutes if y'all got the boots, the whole song into the album. But I think now that you're saying that, I think that's Prince's kind of like a little bit of like, I know the album's gonna be fire, but y'all ain't gonna be better than Purple Rain or whatever I'm about to put out.
I could see that, I mean, from the stories I've heard, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of them, he was really controlling and, just a perfectionist. And, even how, he fired Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, it's kind of like, you have to do what I say and be, so that wouldn't surprise me if that were the case,
As a Scorpio, you can't put nothing past me. It was definitely sabotage. Come on, let's keep it a buck. It's the thing is, we all know, because remember, it would take years later for Prince to finally even admit it publicly on just how dangerous the time was. Even though most of y'all, like people that knew the stories, and I learned later as I got older, but the thing is that even for me to see, before I knew it, I'm just looking at, as I'm measuring performance, because at that time, me and my brothers, we're studying the tapes now. Now we're studying the whole, and I'm like, so why is it that they, you know what? And then started hearing the story. And I was like, yeah, because they wouldn't let him play in New York. I'm like, that all bleeds into the competitive nature, because Prince realized in those moments, I created a monster. And I can't undo it. So now I'm going to have to, like you said, control the situation. And no matter how much Prince tried to control that situation, every single time they got they handed to them. Period. Damn. We love y'all. Y'all dope, but y'all know we about to get in you. That's as we say in the competition, like we know we're about to get in what we're doing, and then that's the thing. So easily with the recordings, you can it's not hard to tell. That's why I'm never going to smooth over that part. I'm like, yeah, he knew. You
know, it's funny because again, as I'm discovering Prince, I'm inside my head. I'm like, Prince can't do no wrong. Ain't nobody bad like Prince, right? But then I watched the Homecoming show of '83 during the Triple Threat tour. And I'm watching the time. Well, yeah, Vanity 6 opened up, cool, but again, that's the time in the back playing the music for Vanity 6, right? Then comes the time, then they hit you with Wild and Loose, and they're going into it, and then they had that little skit where you got the table set up, more as they going, the dinner and all that, right? But then as I'm watching it, and then it gets to the end, I'm like, yo, that was fire. I get it. And then y'all watch Prince, I'm like, I know the whole 1999 set list in my head. And I'm watching, I'm like, Prince got the excitement, but not the time. The time they just had it, and that's where I realized, yeah, he did created a monster at the moment. You hear the story.
That dynamic.
The dynamic.
Like I was gonna say that the Wild, like I tell Jelly Bean all the time, this is the luxury of being around him and working with him and stuff like that. You know how you knew when the signal was there? I mean, even with the opening thing. But in that part in Wild and Loose, like I said, that was it right there. But that part, and then Jerome comes out with the mirror, and Jerome wasn't even a full thing in character yet. So that part right there, and the way they were in their songs, you can see it. So by the time they got to the walk, that was what we say in Mortal Kombat? Finish him.
Hilarious.
I'm a video game head. I can't help it. So that was the finish. So you said that right. Like just all the set list, it makes it memorable even in that, because those dynamics, and I learned all that being around my uncles in different bands, like Brass Construction, Crown Heights Affair. I learned, you learn about dynamics and precision and musicianship. But now to see it from the Minneapolis standpoint and to see Tom, now you can you can see why Prince was like, okay, I have to modify this.
All right, we got 3 minutes, so I'll make this quick. Yeah, no, one quick. Let me just read this last one. Do you think Morris Day was the one playing drums on Irresistible Bitch? Say it again. 30 minutes.
See, you scared.
Time with that.
Lord.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, then let me settle down. Okay. Do you think Morris Day was the one playing the drums on Irresistible Bitch? But I don't think.
He told me, definitely. That and of course all the other stuff he played drums on Controversy. That's what he told me, and I don't think he would have a reason, because I used to hear those stories all the time, and then it would make sense considering, we talk a lot about Morris's character and all that, but we forget about Morris, the musician, the sick drummer. Yeah. That even Prince told when they had him for Modern Drummer, he told Modern Drummer, you need to interview Morris Day. And they did. I'm glad that they reached out to Morris, and that's one of the real in-depth Morris Day interviews that he had ever done, where you get a chance to just talk about his drumming, who his favorite drummers was, and of course David Garibaldi from Tower of Power, so that everything made sense, and Jelly Bean as well, because Jelly Bean's like, me and Morris would always sit down and trade licks, and then you bring it up to Andre Simone, it's the same thing. He's like, man, nobody can play. What he said in that thing, he said, look, Bobby Z is cool, but he couldn't for me on his last day. And when they asked Bobby Z about that comment, he's like, I can't argue with that.
What it is.
because he can't. It's like, and that goes to show you. So he definitely, I asked him, he said, I played on Irresistible. I'm like, oh, okay. Because we were wondering that. You could tell. I'm wondering, I'm like,
So yeah,
it sounds like him.
Yeah, I was gonna go to that because you can tell the difference between Prince's drumming and Morris's drumming. Right?
Absolutely.
Morris is more on the time, on the beat, like on the four, and he's very powerful. Like I'm thinking in my head, I'm comparing Corian Bacon-Skin, which I think it is the cousin of Irresistible Bitch.
Right.
And you hear the
Or Tricky.
right. You just hear you hear the 4 and the 4 just hitting, then you listen to Irresistible Bitch hitting on the 4s, right? And then you hear his freestyle at the breakdown of Irresistible Bitch go. It's like, okay, Prince don't roll like that. Even in Controversy, Prince don't roll like that. I relate Prince's drumming to Stevie Wonder's drumming. Stevie Wonder's drumming is like very complex. Like
Yes.
listen to Living in the City, right? During the living, just listen to the drumming. Stevie's like just hitting everything.
You can tell when it's Stevie
hitting
playing.
everything.
You can tell when it's Stevie.
Yeah, Prince, he's hitting everything too. Even if like the clip, like the months before his passing, you see him playing on. He's just hitting everything. Morris is like he's on the time. He'll explode when he wants to explode, but he holds back until he needs to go. So I do agree that on and there's this bitch, the drum is not all over the place until the breakdown. So I do agree. I do think Morris Day is the one drumming.
Now,
So,
what it-
Michael, sorry to interrupt you,
go ahead.
but
No,
more
go.
importantly, how does Morris keep his hair in place while he's doing all that drumming?
His hair wasn't done during them sessions.
Jerome.
In the studio, you sweat. I don't care what nobody tells you. It's do-rags and all kind of, they not playing looking the way they look on stage.
Well, I was gonna say, would it have been cool if we would have known at that time that was Morris playing on them songs? Like that would have just added more to like, yo, this guy is not just up here doing all this. Like he's a serious musician too, you know.
And that's the thing. And again, that's what, I told you, as I got deeper, things begin to make sense. And then as we're talking about that, same thing when it comes to Jelly Bean Johnson's guitar playing. Because when they did Fish, when Jimmy and Trey produced Fishnet, everybody thought that was Jesse playing the solo. No, that's Jelly Bean. So then you realize, okay, this is very much like the Eagles, supergroup. All these guys produce, they play more than one, and then like you learn a lot of this stuff. Even with Jesse Johnson's production, a lot of people didn't know that he produced Janet before Jimmy and Terry did on the Dream Street album. So the thing is,
Dream Street.
it's making me, it's making me realize. I'm like, thank God. I don't know about y'all, but I'm a Lana No baby. So for me, as we were studying all this stuff, I'm reading everything, and I'm learning. I'm seeing familiar names. I'm learning who the engineers are. I'm learning all this stuff, and again, you start to pick up things. That's why when I said Mars drum, that's how I found out Mars was a drummer. I'm like, Mars, they playing drums, and mind you, because you can't picture it. I'm thinking about Mars, That's all I know about Mars. So the thing is, to see that, and then I'm like, understand like, what kind of drums do we really play? Because remember, drums is my first instrument. You've seen clips of me on Instagram. I said, so I could tell the drummer when I hear one. So I'm looking, and I'm like, and then I started learning more. And then, of course, you get the history about Grand Central. It's like, oh, so Morris was that guy even before that. And I saw the old pictures. I'm like, wow. He was that dude. So you said it right. I'm glad that we started learning, and thank God for the internet too, the years later, of course, because the thing is that now a lot of the fans who are getting into Prince and the Minneapolis sound, you're learning not just about Prince, but you're learning about, I call the time and all the people who are affiliated, I call those the architects of the Minneapolis sound, because yeah, Prince led the charge because he was the first one to really kind of break out on that level, like in terms of that, but he wouldn't have been able to do it without being part of that whole circle. So thank God that we do learn and know about Morris's prowess as a drummer. So
And that Purpose Snowbox set collection that's out there right now that covers all the old Minneapolis sounds and all the bands on it that kind of led into, Prince now making the Minneapolis sound as prevalent as it is. I think it's on streaming sites, the Purple Sound. Or Purple Snow. Purple Snow, I think is the name of it. But yeah, I won't say that.
too.
All right, we got another question for Al Wine. How funkier do you think the time would have been with the intended lineup of Alexander O'Neal on lead and Morris on drums compared to the time lineup we have now?
He would got in his house. That's for sure.
It'd been a
It
whole
would've been
different,
such a different band, though.
yeah.
You know, so I mean, what we could do without Morris's comedy and. I mean, Alex, you know, is
Would've got
amazing,
that.
but it would have been such a different band. I think.
Alex's presence to me would change it. Like he's very, you know, what is this album called All True Man? Like he was.
Even on Hearsay, if you listen to the album, you like, he could have worked with the time. Cause you heard it, cause he had the same vernacular at the time. He's over there and I'm like, yes, and all that. So it's like, okay, you can hear Alexander on the time, but I don't think that Alexander could do what Morris did. No. You know, because again, Morris and Prince was so alike. Mm-hmm. It's just that Morris was more the comedic one. He's more of the actor than Prince was, right? Prince was like, yeah, I got the jokes. This is Jamie Starr right here. And then Prince, and then Morris Day's like, oh, I could copy off that character, but make it more cooler. Mm-hmm. I don't think Alexander want to do that because, you know, I got to get paid. You know, I got to get me a house, Prince. You know,
Paper. I got to get some paper.
I ain't mad at you.
I'll be on the
I was going to say,
history buff.
I was going to say, you kind of summed it up. It's two different personalities. Yeah. It's the same thing as when you look at certain bands. If we look at the history of music, certain bands were able to thrive. Like, for example, I'm a diehard AC/DC fan. And Bon Scott's voice sounded like the Crypt Keeper. and of course, once he died, and then all of a sudden, how does a band that already had success come into the 80s, and then you bring in Brian Johnson, who talks like this, well, you know, it is what you gotta let it in. Then it's I'm like, he can barely sing. So the thing is, and they end up having their biggest success. So I think in the case of the time, Alexander, it would have worked, but I don't think it wouldn't have worked the longevity part of it, because there's character and there's character. And Alexander O'Neal is no slouch. I love Alex. But the thing is that even, because I hear fake, every time I'm like, well, that could have easily been a time song. That could have been that. But the thing is, even in that, and respectfully speaking, for all you musicians that are like me, it's the same key as Fishnet. It's the same group. If you look at, I like to think that Jimmy and Terry probably created that synergy in the same, not session, but probably in the same year, around that same time. So the thing is, even in that, if you put those two together, because you know, and I'm getting ideas now for the next Prince show that I ever do. But the thing is, it's that whole thing. It's like, yeah, but Morris could have easily sung that too. Maybe not as good as Alex. That's because nobody. I mean, his vocal compared to his, it's just no comparison.
It would have been more comedic.
It would have been more comedic. I gotta cut like just the video, and I'm trying to imagine Morris in this situation here. He would have probably pulled her wig off or some. You know, that's Morris. You know, it would have been, and that would have been hilarious. Like she is a fake. So I mean, yeah, it's sunshine. Oh God, you stupid. So it's hard. It's hard to really say, but from my standpoint as a musician and as a front man myself, when I look at the two, I'm like, yeah, I can see that, but I still feel like it just doesn't. Morris really set the tone, and what was meant to be was meant to be. And Alex ended up having a career of his own anyway, so it didn't matter. Yeah.
Another group, when you were mentioning the groups, that made me think about the example was Genesis.
Of course, come on now.
I heard that band name.
Come on now. That's how imagine being 80s baby. Yeah. I'm seeing in the air tonight and all that, but then I'm looking at it's always a shame, it's just a shame. I'm like, hold up. And not even knowing that there was a whole history, but of course y'all know the story. Peter Gabriel was the lead singer. Yeah. He didn't want to do it no more. It's like, Phil, come off them drums. You can still play the drums in the studio and on stage and have it set next to Chester. We're going to be that. But that's true. That's like a lot of groups weren't able to bounce back in that sense when they changed up these things. Now, just imagine if Morris Day would have left the time. I mean, even though he did, but the thing is just that if you notice, when he left, when he started doing this solo stuff, the Tom didn't try to do no shows without him. You can't. That's how you know the impressionable mind. I hate to say that, but in most groups, that's usually the case. Some bands or some groups are able to function and continue and even have greater success when they're that. And then that shows and proves that who was about the group and who wasn't, or what's the really standpoint here. And we know no greater example than that is New Edition, because they kicked out the member who started it, who was the first lead singer, even though Ralph was chosen because of his distinct voice. And then all of a sudden, Ralph was like, well, look at it this way, Bobby. Now you get a chance to do what we was talking about. And what happens? Bobby Brown ends up selling more records than his boys and becomes the most unlikely pop star to ever hit the stage. So see what I mean? And then No Audition had to step there. He's like, well, Bobby's killing us. We're going to have to go in there. And, of course, who they recruit?
Go up to
Jimmy
Jam
and Terry.
Lewis. It's
Heartbreak
all tied
album.
together.
So see, it pays the price.
Heartbreak.
Again,
They
sorry.
want that Minneapolis funk. They wanted that
You know,
sound.
And just too, I mean, to me, I think if you look at the movie Purple Rain and imagine the password scene with Alex, like Morris just has a whole other sort of comedic timing and just screen presence that carries that. Like I don't think anybody could touch that. The dynamic between him and Jerome, you know, like that could have easily bled into. I could even see Cherry Moon as Morris. And, you know what I'm saying? Like that kind of timing. We got another comment from online. Considering how quickly Jesse, Jam, and Lewis found success after the Times' demise, do you think there were creative debates with Prince right before Purple Rain / Ice Cream Capsules?
Of course. I mean, first of all, Mars put in the book. You know, he said, it's in the book. But again, for those of us who are, you know, Minneapolis aficionados, like you think about it. When Prince cast such a large shadow in the creation of everything that he's done, that's why you're hearing gripes even now to this day. You know, when I had that conversation with Tony M about all the stuff, because there's no denying Tony M's influence. You can hear the whole hip-hop part of it, and then the lyrical part, it's all written in that Stone part, but that's the reason why when they be like, yeah, because it just seemed like Tony disappeared. I said, and then I knew the story, of course, but then when he finally said, Lord, you know how hard it was for me and Levi to sue the guy that pretty much opened the door? And when you hear, you know, there's an old saying, when you hear the same story more than at least 8 or 10 times, there's something behind it. And the thing, and of course, there's no disrespect to Prince and what he's created, but that's like that with most of the situations too. And it's easy to see because you got to think about it. All, you know, Jimmy, Terry, Jesse, as producers, and like I said, producers and songwriters, even though Jimmy and Terry had to go the hard way with the SOS band, but Jesse was already doing, you know, one of my favorite productions of his is Faraway Eyes. You know, from the Action Jackson soundtrack for Vanity, and people don't even know. And it's like that's how much Jesse contributed in terms of what he was doing right around that same. That's 85. So think about that for 1 second. 85, 86. So
Tom Mara in the scene.
See,
Yeah.
What'd you call it?
Tom Mara in the scene.
Oh, see,
That's summertime.
he
love.
knows. Look, see that. See, that's why he knows.
Wait, in the opposite.
He young.
Yeah. So they.
Summertime love. Come on, that's my
Yeah.
choice.
So the thing is, you know, in any situation like that, you're gonna always have that because that need for, hey, we got some ideas too. Think about it. It is like, okay, Prince gives us a sheet, we sing it, we do whatever it is, and he has a demo, he's already playing all the instruments. But you already knew. That's why I'm thankful for the later time stuff, because now Prince had no choice but to collab. Because at that point, you know, they had achieved so much of their own success as a separate entity, even though they're part of the Minneapolis sound. But by the time Jerk Out and Graffiti Bridge, and then they go on to do other stuff, and Mars is doing movies now, it's like, okay, bro, if we going back in here to do anything like this, this is what it's going to have to. This will not have to be. And of course, Prince can just be like, no. You know, that's how. No. And the thing is, okay, well, we're going to keep that. I mean, if y'all read Mars, but he pretty much detailed it very, even though I knew, but to see him detail it in real time in that book, it made so much sense. I'm like, so to answer that question, that's definitely, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We got a special question, and we're gonna start with Shelly.
Okay.
This one's for you.
Okay.
Can you give us your best? What you like? Can you give us your best Morris Day impression?
Oh, jeez Louise, why me? You know, it's so funny. When I was in high school, I used to always do Morris Day, but I don't know if I can do it now.
You can do it. Just give us
We believe in you. We believe in you.
I don't know. I'm gonna
On the spot.
I'm gonna defer to you guys. I don't think I can do Morris now.
Come on.
But I used to do it all the time.
You can't give me like a little yes or
Yes.
There you go.
I used to do it much better.
Now, Mr. Randy.
I was thinking, I was like, what should I say? Oh, okay.
Famous lines.
I wish you could see my home. It's so nice. In my bedroom, I have a brass water bed.
Oh, really?
Somebody help me.
Real good. That was good.
Thank you.
Always was funny. Like, I guess that was the thing. Like, to have a water bed was such a big deal. Because remember, she was like,
water.
he was like, yes.
Water.
And we said,
Not water.
water. We say erotic artifacts. I was like, what are
Artifacts against you. That's
He said,
Is that statue?
it depends on what it depends on what you're into. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
and the most classic to me is an Italian cook. Jerome, just got to wax you something like that. Yeah.
And then
Them brothers and stuff.
Then my personal favorite, waiter, I think I have the hot turkey dinner. What comes with that? Mashed potatoes, baby. That's enough, man. I just said, ain't no actual, like, just because you made them get the hell out of my face. Like, that's
Yes.
that was really Morris in real time. If you ever really hung around him the way we did, like, that's when he gets agitated, because, you know, he rarely blues his car. I've seen him when he has to deal with sound and all that kind of stuff. I've seen him go there before. That's why I'm like, that's so him. That's really.
What did he say? You know how to do the walk, or you know how to...
Oh, do you know how to do the walk? Well, certainly. Everybody know how to do the walk. I'm gonna get your ass walking inside Red two.
Walk your ass in.
5.2. I don't know some French what he was saying.
No, he says, excuse my language. Fuck you, dude.
Oh, that's what he said. I thought it was some French word that he was saying.
Say that around your mom. That's what she'd say. But
Yeah.
that's what he
I get it.
yeah, Prince. They was wild.
It was wild. Or even on the walk, but I'm not gonna do.
What did he say?
Michael, I have to say my favorite.
Yes.
Come on.
It's
The master.
Don't get too excited because it's
I'm already there.
it's so simple, but it's literally good morning.
Oh, yes. Morning.
Oh, wait. You know I do the graffiti bridge one when he was talking to Aura. Where'd you get your manners?
Oh, your mama.
Your mama.
That's right.
That's right, baby. Your mama.
So I wonder if there was
The day's so
another.
pretty. Wish I could so ugly.
If there was another version where he was talking like Purple Rain Morris. That's right. Your mama.
Like, Morris, how do I look? Almost as good as me. Let's go.
Classics,
Who's
man.
the lovely lady? He introduced us.
Class. I was just let's see. Okay. Well, while I'm looking through this. Oh, here's one. Interesting. Why were women not offended, and maybe they were, by Morris's antics?
I would say consider it funny. Like I said, you know, as I was listening to the album coming over here, I was like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, we got
You
real
would think
personal.
I would
We like-
know that. Sorry. As I said earlier, when I was listening to the album coming over, I was like, a lot of the things he says is kind of like, like Madros. It's like, sounds very, I don't know. It's just like, you're shackling me down. It's possessive, and then a lot of the other things were sexist. But I don't think you took it seriously. It's not like, well, I'm thinking he's not doing this in real life. It's like, it just seemed like comedy. And so I wasn't offended. It was over the top, but it wasn't, I didn't take it seriously because it was funny. Yeah.
And also remember too, respectfully speaking, it was a different time back then.
Yeah.
See, and I know everybody been having these discussions of the last couple of months, and this is me personally being the 80s. Of course, I grew up in the era of, Eddie Murphy in his prime and things of that nature. So, of course, when us young kids started getting into rated R movies, your mothers used to, cover your ears. No, go. You can't watch that scene with Prince and Apollonia. So, of course, when we finally saw it, like in real time, when we got the VHS, it was like, oh, okay. So it was a different time back then. And I think more so if you got the comedy aspect of it, because we all, as kids, even we knew back then, it's like you don't talk to women that way. So we kind of, my mother raised us right. I'm a city boy with Southern roots, so she raised a gentleman. And the thing is, we were able to separate that part of it from that. So even though we would joke around and do the Mars thing every now and then, like we also knew like, okay, well, it's just us being funny. We're not being serious about this and
Some
that
of
shit
us
before.
were raised right, because
Well, you know, I ain't here to tell nobody's business, but but yeah, but it was a different time period back then. So I think even as we study it now and we look back, I'm like, you know, it's tame, and then more so because in the generation we in now, that stuff wouldn't work here, which is interesting. Think about it, right? Anybody, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. We have more freedom to be in the realm of comedy and connecting to music, and if it's raunchy or that part of it, and you get a chance to hear all this stuff. No different from Dolomite. You know, no different from any of the things that most people who grew up in the 70s and the 60s had to listen to. And when your rap group is NWA, like me, all the cards are pretty much off the table at that point. So
interesting. Where would you, let's go down the line in terms of the 4 Time albums. In my mind, though, I always feel like it's a trilogy. No. The first 3, but I said in my mind, But there are 4 albums. Well, in those 4, where would you rate Ice Cream Castles?
I thought about that question too on the way over here. I'm gonna put it number 2. I'll put Ice Cream Castle, right? As number 2. The first one to me is What Time Is It? Right? 'Cause I think that's just the pinnacle of the time. You had The Walk. It's like if you want to know who the time really is, that's the album you want to go to. Ice Cream Castle. It connects the album before, but it just makes it more of a comedy. It makes not more of a comedy, yes, makes like that's the time's groove. You know, it's funky. You're gonna have a good time, and also you're gonna laugh at the same time, right? So that's where I put Action Castle number 2, and then the First Time album number 3. Pandemonium's number 4 to me.
Man, Pandemonium has my
first
summertime thing, which is that's my joint.
How about I say this though? I like the longer version.
Oh yes,
with the
we already
outtakes
did.
and all that.
Yeah, we already did.
I don't want to do that.
Sheila.
That would be my list as well. I mean, because What Time Is It is so funky. You'd be like, oh, you have to make the nasty face, the ugly face whenever you listen to the song. You know, it's just really, you know, and Gigolos Get Lonely too. It's just like 777. It was just, yeah, I think that one's for me the number 1 Time album. And then Ice Cream Castle. Again, I think it's a perfect little nugget. You know, it's 6 songs. It's got everything. It's got funk, but it's got comedy, and it's just very entertaining, and it leaves me wanting more. So I think it's my second one. Yeah.
I like that. Mr. Lau.
And for me, it's interesting because Ice Cream Castles was number 1, of course, as y'all heard the story I told earlier, but then Pandemonium replaced that. Because the connecting line of me coming of age, now that I know the history, and here I am thinking at the time it's never going to get back together again, so I'm already just dealing with Mars's solo career and all these different things are happening. We get more into hip-hop. Then all of a sudden, New Edition takes a hiatus, Belvedere DeVoe comes. This is 1990. So now in the realm of me and my friends, because most of my friends didn't even, I meant to mention this earlier, a lot of my friends didn't get into Prince until the Diamonds and Pearls and Symbol era. That's why if you see most of my Prince shows that I've done, there's a lot of that in there because when Prince started incorporating the hip-hop aspect, that spoke directly to most of my friends who claimed to not be into Prince. Because I told you, in the streets, it was very taboo. It was like, you know, I like Prince, but, you know, it's kind of... But when Get Off and all that stuff came out, I was like, yo, Prince is rhyming. He's rapping. He got this other dude, Tony, whatever his name is. So around that time, and now here comes Graffiti Bridge. I mean, even though the stuff came later, but that set the tone. Graffiti Bridge and then the Pandemonium album. So that made everything connect for me. So after that, then what you said earlier. So Ice Cream Castles moved down to number 3, and What Time Is It became number 2, because I agree with what y'all said. That's for everybody who got into them at first, the definitive part of what it would become in terms of the character, the personality. Because it was there on the first album, but the first album was just in my opinion, that was a test run. Great test run. But the What Time Is It album, pretty much when what time is it? Like just the whole, you knew something was coming, and that was the main thing. So in between that, and then of course I had to go backwards after that, and that replaces that. So that's where Ice Cream Castles falls for me. It's number 3 today.
And we haven't even mentioned Cool. You know, the C-O-O-L.
That's the moderator. He has to do that.
I mean, that was just so.
I'm messing-
What'd you say?
I'm
Say
messing-
that
I'm
again.
messing.
What'd you say?
Not to say he has to mention it.
Okay. Oh, no, I'm
Yeah,
just saying.
Michael, why you mention Cool?
No, no. What I was saying is, you guys were pointing out songs, and that's what I was saying.
Oh, yeah, okay. I got you.
I was just saying we never talked about Cool, which is, a great
When
song.
you cool, you ain't got to talk about it.
That's Michael for you.
So we're about to round it up.
Yeah, we're about to round it, but I just want to say a +2 to Law. For me, Pandemonium all day, every day, as
Thank
an
you.
album, like from beginning to end.
Yes.
Obviously, What Time Is It is amazing, and the song is 777-9311, and it's an amazing album. But I don't know. As soon as I put on Pandemonium,
Are you saying Pandemonium is your number one?
number one, all day,
We have a
every
lot of
day.
similarities with certain.
Yes, all day, every day. So I just had to back up Law because Pandemonium doesn't get the love that it deserves. So when you go home today, put on Pandemonium.
Hilarious.
Yes. All right. Carry on, Michael.
Shake.
Here we see. I don't start, Michael.
Donald Trump.
That song did not age well at all. Still love it though. I love but yeah.
Darling, baby.
Like, oh hell nah.
It's on black version.
I just want everyone out in the audience to know that Shake is not on Pandemonium.
It should have been,
Fun
but
of Shake, but it's not on Pandemonium. All right.
Hilarious.
yeah.
I was just giving you a shake, just for the
Hell to the no.
All right.
It's not happening.
Well, we're gonna wrap this. So we're gonna finish on time. So with that, I want to give you guys the opportunity to just finish this out. We give 30 seconds. Your take on Ice Cream Castle. You're selling the album right now. Sell me the album in 30 seconds.
Well, I wear it on my shirt, like I said. So thank God for this album. It introduced me to the deeper realms of the Minneapolis sound as I was getting deeper into my number one idol, Prince. And, thank God this album was created. I mean, The Bird and Jungle Love, and with my corporate gig career, anytime we go into any one of those, we do Uptown Funk and I go into Jungle Love and people go nuts because you see the similarity in it. So that sums it up for me.
I mean, I'm just looking at your shirt, your tee, and looking at the album cover. That alone, I mean, look at him in front of a castle. Where was that castle, by the way? Do we know?
Yeah, good question. I don't know.
L.A. Okay. Okay, and then also they were so sharp. Another reason. And then you check out one of my.
Oh, salute to Von.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I love classic cars, and they're sitting on a classic car, leaning against it, and so just the album cover alone. But I already told you guys I love, I think the album is just really a cute little nugget because it's 6 songs, and it's just perfect, and it leaves you wanting more, and I just think it's a great listen.
I don't know how to top that. I'll say this. This album is 4 albums that are important to the 1984 era, right? I'm not going to say the Purple Rain. I'm going to say 1984 in general because that's when Glamorous Life, then came the Ice Cream Castle, Purple Rain, and then Apollonia 6. I would say that this album is important to, say, play after Purple Rain because I think that is where you see Prince being more loose, but yet more collaborative with Morris Day and Jesse Johnson. You get to hear the changes that the time was hearing. You heard the mainstream sound of the time, but it didn't feel mainstream. It felt like this is the time just going off on 6 cylinders, and it's an important part of that era. So if you want to really get into the Purple Rain 1984 era, that album needs to be played right after Purple Rain.
My selling point real quick is this was the time when I first really started paying attention to Prince. And again, my cousin from Houston, she moved up to Seattle at this time, and she was like, we're going to the record store. I'm buying my Purple Rain, and I'm buying The Time. I didn't know who they were. I was like, you don't want to buy that Run DMC King of Rock? Because that's what I listened to. But we would sit in the park, and when she played the Times album, I was like, I didn't want to tell her. But I was like, yo, this is kind of dope. Like, damn, what is this? Like, she's right. Like, so that's my favorite Time album because that's the first one that I got into. But with that said, can we give a round of applause to our roundtable, Mr. Law, Sherry, Randy, D'Angelo, thank you.
And round of applause to you.
Thank you so much.
Michael,
Round of
thank
applause
you.
to you for being a great moderator.
Absolutely, Mike.
Yes,
Working
sir.
like a job. We here.
Give it up to him, y'all.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I was about to say. We can't leave without giving Michael Dean his props for being one of the best moderators
Absolutely.
ever.
Thank you.
And co-host.
Yes.